Welcome to the Alchemy of Ascension Season 4, activating awareness, well-being, intimacy, and self-mastery. I'm your host, Washela Sananda, and today it's my pleasure to introduce you to the lovely Aurika Valan. Welcome, Aurika.
Thank you so much.
So
Hello.
happy to have you here. And before we dive in, I would love to invite everyone to join us for a short alignment meditation so we can really get present for this conversation today. So just begin by closing your eyes and deepening the breath into the belly. And as you're breathing, bring your awareness into the heart and the heart center, feeling the heart beating and making contact with the light in your heart, expanding that light out around the chest. And now bringing that light up through the crown of the head all the way up to central sun, getting in touch with the warmth and the glow and the light of central sun in the heart of the center of central sun, and then bringing that heart light down into the crown of your head, down through the spine, into the heart, all the way to the base of the spine now, and then continue your awareness down all the way into the center of the earth, the heart of the Mother Earth, contacting that divine feminine energy, and then bring that energy up through the layers of the earth as liquid crystal plasma creative energy, moving up the spine into your heart. And now feel that heart light connected to the divine masculine above, the divine feminine below, and your heart light within, creating the divine child and activating the curiosity, openness, and expansion of golden light in the divine child expression. And may that bring you awareness and focus and openness to receiving whatever is in this conversation that is for your highest good to receive today. And now with that, go ahead and come back, opening your eyes. Thank you for joining me in that meditation. And now I'm going to share a little bit about Aurika so everyone knows what you've been up to in the world. Aurika Valan is a woman's sexuality coach and facilitator of transformational spaces. Her deepest soul calling is to enable people to experience the unfiltered essence of their truth and awaken consciousness in their sexuality. In addition to facilitating workshops, Aurika's main line of work is individual and group coaching for women ready to undergo a full life transformation that entails change on the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual levels. Aurika sees sexuality as a direct path to unapologetic self-love, more meaningful relationships, and consciously creating their realities. So, oh, I love that. There's just so much to explore with you today, Aurika. I would love to begin with a little bit of your journey. How did you end up in this work? How did you become a sexuality coach?
Okay, how much time do I have to just speak about the story because it's so rich?
As much as you want.
Okay, so just to start with, I grew up in the most neutral, normal environment where we didn't speak about sex, we didn't speak about menstruation, we didn't speak about emotions. There was no anger, no emotionality expressed in my family or in my surroundings. So I grew up like in an emotional and sexual vacuum. And that continued for quite many years until I was so stuck in a very small matrix world, you know, just working, having insomnia, having very unfulfilling relationships, being attracted to one kind of emotionally unavailable man, you know. And then I was just in deep suffering, feeling really, really lonely. I was still in my mid-20s and I felt like this is it. I was living someone else's dream, maybe thinking I should get a loan, I should get a husband just to fix myself and be happy somehow. And then I developed insomnia. And there, you know, when you cannot sleep for a long time, then you're not really alive and not really human anymore. And then I had a benign breast tumor. I found one in my right breast. That was a sign afterwards. I realized that, wow, there's a lot of anger inside of my body. And that's being clustered into physical knots. Actually, they're being manifested in my body. And there's something I have to do. I didn't know back then what to do. I didn't have any role models. I didn't know anyone in person who had made the leap, you know, to the other side of the world. So I knew people online. I had my books, but physically there was no one. And funny enough, to deal with my insomnia, I used to self-pleasure unconsciously for 1 minute just to have this release of stress. That was the only emotion release tool I had. And then afterwards, I felt just more depleted and more lonely, thinking, okay, that helped for a minute, but so what? So then I moved to Bali just to change all of my life. And there was sitting by these gorgeous rice fields, watching the sunset, you know, this peachy pink colors. It's warm. And then I felt, holy shit. I'm in this gorgeous paradise place and I feel exactly the same. Still, same self-pleasure, same insomnia, same shallow relationships, still no conscious community around. And I realized, okay, let's start by doing an experiment. I stopped my self-pleasure practice. That means I just went fully celibate. I didn't have a partner, so with myself, and see what happens. And there it was. For the first time, I felt sexual energy physically in my body being blocked in my lower belly. I had no idea what it was. It felt very uncomfortable. It was bothering me. And thank God, I met some people who told me about energy circulation. Basically, it was microcosmic orbit that changed my life. I can speak about this practice later. And I just applied my warrior energy, which I used to use in corporations and work to build those through my life, into my self practice. And then about 1 month of doing basically sexual energy circulation practices, my physical reality began to change. And this sounds surreal, maybe to people who have not done this, but literally, I started attracting different kind of people and friends and partners. I started believe so much more in myself that I am actually a creator. I can do something more than following people's orders, right? And tasks. And just my self-worth changed completely. And there it began.
Wow.
So in essence, it was actually feeling the pain of disconnection from my body, from my heart, from my sexuality. That was my hugest wake-up call.
Amazing. Amazing. And then you healed physically from the breast tumor as well?
So it was a benign tumor. So there's nothing I can do. It's just still there as a beautiful reminder. This is what happens if I don't lean into my emotional body and if I abandon my heart.
Wow. Amazing that you made that leap and just chose to go to Bali. And then it all began and you met the people. That one choice changed the entire trajectory of your life. And I think it's really powerful to realize, just one choice like that, it's a big choice, can make all the difference in a person's path. So I love that you trusted yourself enough to do that and to go there and then, to find the people that would be able to assist you. And so from there, you had such an amazing transformation. At what point did you decide this is my work? I must share this with others.
So for a couple of years, I worked for other people, for a couple called Dara and Simon who did similar work, but I was just their organizer. So I was already in the field, but I was just carrying out their projects. And at some point, I was actually in a deep, relaxed theta state, receiving a massage, realizing I could do something on my own, which was huge for me because I grew up in Lithuania, and in Lithuania, we're just taught to not take risks, to stay safe, just to do whatever works, but make sure you don't stand out, make sure you don't speak up too loud, just be very like in the North, just be in your own place. And I felt, I'll try. I'll try to do some movement circles. So I did two circles. They were sold out with no connections. God just fully supported me. And then I did another thing and another thing. And then another leap that I had to do. By the way, taking those leaps into to go to Bali or to make a radical life transformation, it's a complete ego identity dissolution. Because, when you jump off the cliff, you don't know if you're going to be held. It's the ultimate exercise of trust. So I had to jump off the cliff and leave my safety of working with this couple. I didn't really have any savings, but I just knew I could not work for other people anymore.
Yeah.
And there was another initiation. And slowly, I started, just creating my business and doing more workshops, attracting clients, and then creating my business was actually as profound spiritually as unleashing my sexuality. So
Yeah.
now it's all together.
Yeah, and I love that. And that's what attracted me to your work is that you have put sexuality and spirituality together as, equally important in your in what you're training and teaching and sharing with the world. And that's sort of the conversation that we want to dig into here. And so for starters, I know you talk about ascension versus descension. And so I know a lot of people listening are probably like, what in the world does that mean? What is that? Could you explain what do you mean by that?
Yeah. Yes, actually it was so beautiful when I received the invitation to have this conversation. I thought, wow, I need to make sure that we're going both ways. Because there's so much talk, I'm sure in the spiritual community where what I call it mental acrobatics or mental spirituality, where in the mainstream society, we do live from the neck upwards. I mean, maybe from the heart upwards, depends on people, but we don't really go below the heart. While in spiritual communities, we do it we do the same thing, just in a more spiritually packaged way, where we just go to meditations, we go to maybe to plant ceremonies, we do EFT tapping, affirmations, journaling, like everything's still at the mental level, and we don't go lower. And we are just deeply disembodied beings, and body is where life happens. This is where intimacy happens, deep connection to our heart, to our emotions, to our sexuality, right? Our inner child. All of this is moving here every single moment. So in order to become fully integrated, wholly, fully, wholly with an H, I wanted to say wholly embodied beings, we need to go both ways. So firstly, we do need to descend, if you've never done this, in order to ascend in an integrated way. That's what I mean about it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it is embodied ascension. It is coming in, getting into the body to ascend the frequency from within out, which is also what I'm all about. And we do
Mm-hmm.
we do have a tendency to get, like people want to get out when they experience trauma. And we've all experienced trauma. If we're
Exactly.
human, we've had trauma, right? Just being human can be trauma enough when we're such spiritual beings. So it's for some people, I think, more comfortable to not be in the body, because then you're going to be looking at or feeling things that are uncomfortable. And that's, I know the trauma release part is huge for you too. It's a huge part of what you teach on. Can you share a little bit about how does one release trauma through sexuality?
Yeah, amazing. I love this question. Thank you. So firstly, just to give a little hint about trauma, So most people think of trauma as hard trauma, like violence or abuse, right? But or rape, like horrible, horrific things. But it's not just that. We also have accumulated so much what I call soft trauma, even emotional neglect, growing up in an environment where no one checked in with us. I have goosebumps in my body right now. I feel it so deeply. What do you need?
Mm.
Like saying to the child, I love you, you're safe, I love you as you are, all these things. If we didn't receive them, this is emotional neglect. And over time, absence of safety creates soft trauma that builds up in such a way that is as bad as hard trauma, right? We just don't know about it. So trauma is anything that our nervous system couldn't process at a time. Even the little things. Each time we swallow our truth, okay, we build up another layer of trauma. So this is why people don't want to go down into the body, because all of these things are laying there. I'll later share what's available once we go down. But firstly, when we work with sexual energy, we are bound to work with emotions, because it's the same meridians, it's the same channels where the energy is moving through, right? So it's the emotions and the sexual energy. We don't have separate channels. So when we go into a sexual space by ourselves or with a partner, we have to expect that the sexual energy is going to flesh out everything that's not love, right? And I think we have all experience, if we open up sexually to someone where we don't have a deep heart connection, where we feel fully safe and held, shit is going to come up, right? We will feel abandoned, will not be feeling safe to communicate about our needs, desires, and boundaries. So sexual energy will bring all of that vastness of our emotional body up, right? So in order to work with sexuality in an intentional, safe, sacred way, we first need to establish an emotional intimacy with ourselves, right? So we need to be attuned, as you spoke about, we need to be embodied to we need to be attuned, to our body's messages, moment to moment. How's my unit feeling? How's my belly? Is my belly contracted and saying, oh, there is something going on? I need to take a pause, right? And most people, maybe I'll just define embodiment. We are all in the body, right? As long as we're alive. But it doesn't mean we are embodied. We're not in the body. We have one, but we're not in it. We can't feel what's going on moment to moment. And for women, that comes to our menstrual cycle, our intuition, our emotions, like our desire to love and to share love, all our feminine longing. All of this is happening here, right? So once we start being attuned to these signals of the body, then we can enter a sexual space with consciousness. And only there we can experience deep intimacy, not just with ourselves, but with our partners.
Yeah, beautiful. Um, I can relate to, I mean, everything that you just shared is beautiful. Like, which direction do I begin here? Yeah, just the sacredness of presence with what's going on with the body. I think we, as a culture, a society, we want to get away from what the body's feeling a lot of the time. And we tend to be stressed out in our jobs and in our relationships, or neglected. And it's just uncomfortable. So to take that time and presence to be willing to feel, I believe, is a big first step for many people. What's the best way to enter into that first phase of like, okay, I'm ready to just feel what's actually going on here?
Yeah. Yeah. So firstly, do not wait and think until things start going wrong in life, until you're in conflict or in crisis, or people are, getting sick, or, there's big things happening in life, when we actually live for too long bypassing our inner landscape. So the first initial step is have a morning practice where you create safety for your body to feel. So instead of, I love all the practices that help to cultivate our masculine energy, such as meditation or breath work or yoga, or things like that. But we also want to create a space that has no goal, right? And then we can move our body in circular ways. We can shake, we can release emotions, we can dance, so that our body starts just gently relaxing, right? And over time, the armor is going to crack open. So at the beginning, when I work with women, when we start doing these practices, embodiment practices, it takes some time because most of the time the body is numb. And it makes sense because, of course, the body had to create this armor around itself to survive. Because otherwise, the human experience is too much to hold when we don't have the consciousness and the tools to do that. So slowly, we train our nervous system in our morning practice to hold a little bit more energy, a little bit more emotions, right? And then during the day, when someone tells us something hurtful, or when we are stressed, when we are overwhelmed, we can notice the signals a little bit more quickly, right? For example, I received an email, someone said me something that, oh, that feels unpleasant. Oh, okay, I notice my heart is starting to race a little bit, my chest is contracted. So I can take a 5-minute break and be with myself. Maybe I can move, I can just ask my body, oh, what do you need? Can I breathe? And so instead of building more emotional trauma in my body, I start releasing that. So that's the most gentle thing we can do daily with our emotional bodies.
Beautiful. I love the way that you recognize the masculine feminine energies and like the femininity of not having an agenda, or not going to a class and we do ABC and we're done, and the masculinity around that, even in something like breath work, which I also teach breath work and meditation and love it. And there are, the differences there too, the guided meditation versus just sitting, just being meditation. That can be more feminine or more masculine. So to give oneself space to just feel into what's needed in that moment, how simple and yet effective. Everyone, I mean, this should be something we learn from birth, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And when it comes to self-mastery, I know in this beautiful event we're speaking about self-mastery. So it's, for me personally, it's all about the inner union, uniting the opposites, right? So when we descend, we go down, we gather this sheer amounts of energy, right? So we liberate what's being suppressed, and there's so much energy that gets unleashed, right? And then we can bring it up, right? And then the ascension energy is also supporting us to connect to source. So all of this is moving and activating us fully. And then there's also the inner union between our masculine, our inner feminine, right? And so from that space, we become whole beings. So for example, what does it mean in a sexual space, right? Okay, so there is a lot of sexual energy, a lot of pleasure, a lot of energy moving. It's intense. It's incredibly intense. And there, so this is the feminine aspect, the movement, the flow, the ecstasy. And the masculine aspect is that we don't just collapse into chaos. There's the awareness holding the center and observing what's going on. So this is how inner union feels when we're in this really high intensity states in life. And the same thing when we're maybe having a fight with someone in life, you know, the same thing. We're noticing, whoa, my heart is just going to jump out of my chest. Oh, I want to run. I want to attack. And there's my inner witness. Okay, I'm watching that. And actually, I have the capacity to slow down, to respond with love instead of reacting to what's going on.
Mm. Yeah, that's important and powerful. So, yes, so when, and what you're talking about, all of these things sound like you don't necessarily need a partner. These are self mastery, self cultivation techniques. How important is it, in your opinion, to, I mean, for someone who is single or doesn't have a partner, or maybe doesn't even want one, or hasn't had one in a long time? can this be done without a partner?
Absolutely. You know, when I began doing this work, I was single. I was single for 4 years, thinking, I am so ready for a relationship. I really want my man to come into my life. And actually, I wasn't. Now I know I wasn't, because I was actually having a full-time job of abandoning my heart for years. So this is what I attracted. So I wasn't ready. So actually, my dharma at the time was to meet my heart and my sexuality by myself. So just to really like up level my being to that level, because this is the part I wanted to attract. I was there. So I was just like upgrading and upgrading and upgrading so that I could meet someone that can meet me the way I desire to be met. So an example, there was a time where I spent about half a year without having a partner at all, being celibate, not with myself, but celibate with other people. And I spent a month doing one experiment, self-pleasure every single day for 30 days in a conscious way, not in the way I used to do in the past. So it was part of my morning practice every day for about 1 hour, doing all kinds of practices and meditations to merge my sexuality, heart, and consciousness. And you know what? That was the time where I felt probably almost, it was one of the most sexually fulfilling times of my whole life. I was just bursting with creative energy. I was so alive and vibrant, you know? So, and that prepared me afterwards to know what my pleasure feels like in my body, to know what my boundaries and my needs are, to know when my yoni is ready to be entered by me before, so that I can communicate this with my partner. So it's a fundamental way to become a sovereign being, to know ourselves sexually first, to be capable of experiencing pleasure with ourselves first. You know, when I work with women, one of the main challenges that they come to me with is lack of sexual desire, right? Especially in long-term partnerships, when we have families, we have jobs that are not very fulfilling, we are stressed, and then there's no more chemistry. So what do we do with that? Do we need to get a divorce, or can we do something about it? So the first thing I say to my clients is that firstly, we need to practice our pleasure muscle in our daily lives with ourselves first, because otherwise, if we are completely disembodied, incapable of feeling pleasure with ourselves in daily life, then the journey to go basically from 0 to 100, which is an orgasm in bed at night, is almost impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Or another metaphor that's going to help maybe people to understand this. If our orgasm is like boiling water, 100 degrees Celsius, I don't know, Fahrenheit, and 0, it's completely dead, or below 0 when it's frozen. So mostly, if we are not conscious in our sexuality, we're around 0 maybe to 10, 15 degrees, right, in daily life. And to reach an orgasm to 100 degrees, it's a really, really long journey, right? So we need to be cultivating this energy, firstly, by moving our emotional energy, by resting, by inviting pleasure through non-sexual ways in daily life, so that we're equipped to move to 100% when the time is ready.
Yes, that's so, it's just so clear. When we're shut off emotionally, how can we feel anything? And when we're not in our bodies, how can we feel in relationships, particularly with our partners? And
Yeah.
as you said earlier, you mentioned when you first started these practices, everything changed about you energetically and physically as well, but that had you be in a place where you attracted all different new people that were more compatible with your new way of being. So I love that you mentioned that when people are like, okay, I'm ready for a partner now, and it's like, no, you're actually not, because you're going to attract from the place that you are.
Exactly. Yeah. And I can share just another story briefly. There was a time in my life where I ended up living in the Arctic. It was the polar night. It was dark 24/7 for a few months. It was like minus 30 degrees. It was very cold. I had no friends, no one I could talk to, or no one that could understand me without me explaining my concepts and my language. So, and there I really had to learn how to hold myself. And holding myself, these are really dear words to me because they speak of my inner union. That means that I have a strong inner man, a strong inner divine masculine energy that can hold my emotional storms, that can hold my longing for love, my longing for partnership, right? My little girl that feels vulnerable and insecure. So when I began fully, when I began to stop abandoning myself, all the messy human part of me, only then I could attract someone. And actually, when I left the Arctic, feeling much more sovereign and so much more attuned to my self-worth, then I attracted finally someone who can show up the same way for me, the way I was showing up for myself.
Mm.
So if someone is not in a relationship right now, it's a very important time not to try to fix yourself so that you can attract someone, but actually to master your inner union, because this is who you are, this is your full potential, this is your home, and let go completely of the need to be with someone from the space of I'm not whole. And actually, as you become whole, you're no longer really needing someone in life to have fun with, because you're having so much fun by yourself. And then the universe is saying, I've got you. There you go. There's
Mm.
a wonderful person can meet you.
Yes. Oh, that's beautiful. And it's so true because we attract what we are. We attract the people that
Yeah.
are at the same frequency as we are. So, of course. I have a module or teaching about integrating the twin flame, which is very
Mm,
similar to that union where it's all within us. It's all about integrating the masculine, feminine, and allowing, like you said, allowing the other side, whether we're male or female, allowing the other part of that to reside within and hold us. So I thought that was beautiful
mm,
the way you described it. Thank you. Um, I heard I had watched some of your some clips from videos that you've done previously, and something that you said that was very interesting to me is was about how we can use our sexuality to awaken the world. And I'm like, wow, that's an amazing idea. Tell me
mm,
tell me what the idea is behind that. How can we awaken the
mm.
world with our sexuality?
So I think it also includes all the elements we already spoke about, is becoming whole, the topic of self-mastery, inner union, integrating our emotional body, right, to become sovereign beings. And at the same time, when people are disconnected from the sexual energy, we need something from the outside to complete us, right? We're disconnected from our inner truth, our inner voice. We don't have this inner compass about what's right, what do we truly desire. And then we rely too easily on the external authorities, on what the government is saying, what the outside situation is dictating us to do, basically, right? So we're just become like leaves floating in the wind. Oh, I have to do that. Oh, that. Oh, I have to follow that order, right? So we have lost our internal authority. So sexuality for me is this mm, portal to our core, right? That's available to us at every single moment. What do I desire? What do I need? Where do I need to live? What is my purpose? What is my truth in this moment, right? So when we don't have that, we're completely lost in this world. We're not free. We're completely dependent on the external validation, on the external authorities to know what to do in life.
Mm. So sexuality, being related to your own sexuality as the compass for what to follow, what to follow. That's that's amazing. Yes.
And And then there's the creativity part. You know, I think everyone kind of knows right now the sexual energy is our creative energy. But what do we do with that?
Mm.
What do we do with this piece of information? Um, do we write about that? Do we read about pleasure? Do we look for articles online how to have an orgasm? This is good, it's level one. But actually, when we tap into that sheer force of energy that's available to us, we do become creators of our own life. So we're not no longer victims blaming the external world for having a mediocre life, you know, being unfree, unfulfilled. But we actually start feeling, wow, I am capable. I am worthy of the best possible life, you
Mm.
know. And sexuality is not just about sex and orgasm, it's actually being alive and vibrant and connected to God through our bodies. So we literally what's the word I'm looking for, become the commanders of our own realities,
Mm.
right?
I love that. And it being, yeah, sexuality is not about sex or sex itself. It's about being alive, vibrant, and being connected to God in our bodies. I mean, that is just a beautiful way to see it. So for anyone, and this is where I really wanted to get to in this conversation, for anyone that's confused about why are we talking about sex on a spirituality show? Right? Like it's the embodiment piece of when we are really activated. And I love how, you use the creative energy. Just when we activate our creative energy and let it flow, that is sexuality, and that is equally connected to God, maybe more so than just about anything else in the way that you're sharing it. And it's interesting to me too that we've been like that sexuality is a taboo. Isn't it interesting that we're so, in so many cultures, not all of them, but in so many cultures, removed from the conversation, cut off, so that as if it's a bad thing, a negative thing, don't go there, don't talk about it, don't discuss it. Even on this show, I figure I might get a little lashback from sharing in this way, but I really love bringing the understanding of it's all God. It's all God and more embodiment of God. And there's nothing taboo about that.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, so in the society, yeah, the sexual energy is either completely underexpressed through abstinence, through saying that sexual energy is dirty, it's sinful, it's only for procreation. And actually, if you're not procreating a life, we can create our own life, you know? It's the same process. It's magical. Or it's completely overexpressed, which we can see in a very distorted version of sexuality through pornography, right? So it's up to us, for people actually watching this video, to say, okay, what's the middle pathway? What is my approach to sexuality in my daily life? Because even if people are, even the most spiritually, intellectually, financially evolved people, everyone has something to heal or to express in their sexuality, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we all have something to do, even myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And finding that balance in our lives. As you said, we've all had trauma. And so allowing ourselves to find that balance and alignment and be expressed. Um, and that creates, I love it, creating your own life. You're birthing yourself through all of this all the time.
Yeah.
That's just beautiful. Thank
Mm.
you.
And one more thing, I know there's the word intimacy in the title of this
Yes.
event, right?
Yeah.
And I personally feel I can follow my purpose, be of service, support the mind to sexual awakening. But if my intimate life is not flowing, if my connections and my relationships are not fulfilling, I will still not feel completely alive and whole, right? So for me, intimacy and meaningful, deep relationships, friendships, family, romantic relationships are absolutely fundamental to living a whole, fulfilling, vibrant life, right? And
Yes.
so sexuality is inherent. I can't express how important it is, especially when it comes to romantic relationships. And I don't know a couple who doesn't have some sort of struggle when it comes to sexuality, right? And actually, when we suppress our sexuality, when we disown our desires, when we cross our boundaries, the sexual energy doesn't go away. It just creates more chaos. So I feel that the only approach is actually to just embrace it, see the sacredness of it. And there we can create conscious relationships.
Gorgeous. Yes. And
Mm,
intimacy with self as well, you know,
absolutely.
as you mentioned in the beginning so beautifully, and how to have that inner union. I love this conversation. I really feel like you bring this to light in such an eloquent way, and it's understandable and relatable and just really authentic. So thank you for
Mm.
everything you're sharing. I want to make sure that we tell people about your gift. You have a free gift you're giving, and this is called the Emotional Release Guide, 17 Emotional Release Techniques to help you change your life from the inside out. Can you share about that?
Yes, so it's a very simple, practical tool that works actually only if people use it. Just reading about it, it's not enough.
Uh,
So, as today we spoke about having a morning practice where we invite more feminine energy cultivating practices, emotion release is one of them. So, in this guide, I simply explain a few techniques which work for different emotions, including anger or sadness, that we can use to actually create more safety in our bodies to embrace these emotions.
mm, wonderful. Yes. Feeling safe in our bodies is really fundamental to everything else about being embodied.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Is there anything else that you'd like to share before we end?
Hmm. Let's see. Hmm. Yeah, I just want to give maybe just permission to people and validation that everything you've been through in life has brought you where you're here, right? So even if you feel disconnected from the body, even if you feel numb sexually, it makes sense given what you've been through, and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not about fixing where you're at. It's actually about giving yourself permission to feel what's there, right? And opening the heart in whatever you're going through, even if that's numbness, even if that's anger or sadness or grief, it's all allowed. So instead of living in a very small emotional spectrum, a little bit of pleasure or joy, a little bit of pain, we just simply want to expand into both directions. And this is our wholeness, this is our embodiment and being an integrated human being. It goes in both ways.
Yes, absolutely. This has just been such a beautiful conversation. I appreciate you so much, Aurika. And I'll be sure to include your links and how to get a hold of you in the write-up. And I'm just delighted that you came on. So thank you for all you've shared.
Thank you so much. Absolute pleasure to be here.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'd love to invite you also onto the Facebook page to contribute to the conversation there. And so with that, we will end. Have a wonderful day or evening, everyone, and namaste.